Okay, today's Lenten experiment will be making Seitan, or I don't know, maybe you pronounce it Satan, but I'd rather not have Satan in my kitchen, so I'm going to call it Seitan, Seitan. Now, this is a meat substitute. The texture is very, very different than what you might be used to with textured vegetable protein or TVP, which is a bit more grainy. This, once it's cooked, will have a texture more like regular meat. In fact, I rather like it. Now, this is, though, one of the things my kids refer to as an actual experiment. I think I'm the only one that eats it. And my kids affectionately call this creature, because when you're cooking it in the pot, it looks kind of like a brain or something. So there's your expectations, right? Always set the expectations right out of the gate. Now, one of the primary ingredients, because I've never been able to find a Seitan mix kit, so I looked it up, and I don't know if this is 100% right, but it works for me. I use wheat gluten flour. Now, a lot of people want things that are gluten-free, not may give me gluten, all the gluten. So if you're sensitive to gluten, this is not going to be your recipe. Stay far, far, far away. All right, so the essential ingredients here are pretty simple. Now, it calls for 12 ounces of flour, in this case the gluten flour, or if you can find it, the Seitan mix. Everything else is pretty straightforward. We have about a pound of carrots, 1 large onion, 4 quarts of water, a little bit of olive oil, and something you'll want to make sure you have in advance, which is a little bit of powdered ginger, which I've got in another enclosure. You'll also need a pretty good way to mix this up, and what I'm going to use here is my KitchenAid mixer with the bread hook, because when you'll see as we start to mix this up, it looks a lot like really sticky bread dough. And with that, we're going to go ahead and set out, because from start to finish, this recipe takes approximately 4 hours. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is, now I have a good accurate way to measure 12 ounces of the gluten flour. So this is 22 ounces. Honestly, I'm just going to kind of wing this. So straight on into the bowl. Yeah. And after the dust settles, providing there's no sparks, we don't want to put some kind of a grain elevator type ignition in the house. I'm going to peel up about a pound, the whole pound of carrots, coarsely chop those. I'm going to peel and coarsely chop the onion. Take about a cup of soy sauce and a couple teaspoons of the ginger. Put that into the pot with the water and just kind of let that go for a few hours. Okay, almost ready to go here. So we've got the wheat gluten flour in the mixing bowl. Got an onion, some carrots that I'm just going to kind of coarsely chop, and over here we've got a 8-quart pot with 4 quarts of water. You want room, because once you put the Seitan loaf in there, it's going to be kind of sizable. 1 cup of soy sauce, and I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of powdered ginger. Now, if you're using the wet mixture you can get in the tubes from the store, this is approximate, because this is just going to be like a sauce or mixture that we boil the Seitan. Coarsely chopped. This is basically all the more that I'm going to do. It's just kind of in good sized chunks, and it'll break up, as you put it in. Back in the kettle, you can see just a few little carrot floaties in there. Some of them sink. We got the powdered ginger mixed in there, as well as the cup of soy sauce. So I've got the gluten flour in the mixer, and I've added just a little over a cup and a half of water to it, and you can see it's just looking kind of brown and bubbly in there. Yeah, tan and bubbly. Now, because this gets a little thick later, I'm going to lock the blade, and we're going to mix this for approximately 5 minutes. You can see that it's starting to get kind of sticky, and trust me, this stuff gets really sticky. If it seems like a sticky, gluey mess, you're probably doing it right, at least as far as I know. I honestly don't know how to make this stuff aside from just following these instructions. So yeah, I'm not really a cook, I'm more of an instruction follower. Now I may adjust the water in here a little bit, but this is going to come out really stretchy, almost like some kind of Play-Doh. So yeah, don't worry about it. There's a reason my kids call it creature. I think the end result is pretty decent though. Yeah, this is looking pretty good, isn't it? So yeah, this is kind of what comes out. Now I'm going to take this, and it's really sticky, and I'm going to knead that a little more because I don't think it quite mixed up as well as I'd like. I can see little bits of flour in there, so I'm going to knead that by hand, and then we're going to take it and flatten it out and start forming the seitan loaf. Yeah, still not clear if this is working out, but you know, we'll see. And at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to beat this thing, not because it's misbehaving, but you want to force all the air pockets out. So for a couple of minutes with this rolling pin, I'm going to beat the living tar out of this ball of creature, and you can see it is looking a little brain-like. So yeah, not to worry. And again, you know, we'll just kind of see. Okay, well that was therapeutic, and also a little bit of exercise. So at this point, we've got the beginnings of a seitan loaf with a lot of the air knocked out of it by using the rolling pin for a couple of minutes, and the consistency gets a little firmer, and it's feeling a little bit more like bread dough at this point. Okay, so from here, I'm going to take a couple sheets of plastic wrap, put one on the bottom of the cutting board. I'm going to place the seitan loaf here. I'm going to take a second sheet of plastic and put that over the top. And what we're trying to do is keep air from being introduced to this loaf. And then I'm going to roll this bad boy out. This is also going to knock some more of the air out of it, because once you boil this, we really don't want air pockets in it. You want the consistency to be as close to meat as possible. So I'm going to roll this out for a couple minutes, and then I'm going to set it aside for about 10 minutes and let it rest. Because once you roll the creature out, creature's tired and he needs you know, a little bit of time before you throw him into the pot. So I'm rolling this out, trying to keep air from being introduced, and you'll start to get, you know, a feeling of the texture. It's a little spongy. I've never handled a human brain, but it seems like it might be similar from what I've seen described. Some brains are more elastic than others. So here we go, we're just rolling this out. So let's take a little look here at what we've got going on. Just, you know, pretty simple. This isn't really that difficult to do. It's a little odd maybe, but there it is. And that's the beginnings of the seitan loaf. So I'm going to let that sit for about 10 minutes. So the seitan loaf is now going into the pot, and you can see it here in all of its glory. And so creature's going to cook here in the pot. And what I did is the ginger, soy sauce, water, carrot, onion mixture basically comes to a boil, or pretty close to a boil. And once you get the seitan loaf in there, you're going to reduce the heat, and you're going to simmer that for about 4 hours. One important tip, you'll need the lid on that. So you don't want that creature escaping. So in this pot for 4 hours. After that, we'll take the seitan out. After about 4 hours, now you're gonna have to keep an eye on the liquid. Make sure that, you know, the seitan loaf stays covered. I tend to flip it over once, you know, kind of in the middle, and then we're gonna put it into an airtight container and let it sit overnight, and it has to be an airtight container. Don't leave it out exposed because it'll dry out. Alrighty, we're about an hour into the Seitan cooking process, and there's a subtle change overcoming the creature. I think it's the air starting to come out, but the loaf enlarged a great deal. And at this point, I'm going to flip it over, which I like to do to keep, kind of liquid on both sides of it while it's cooking. And I got about 3 more hours. So this takes a good amount of time. I'm going to slice it and talk a little bit. Is it on? Thank you, Alex. Good cue. All right, the seitan has been in the refrigerator overnight in an airtight container, and I know you hate it now, but wait till you try it. Should be ready, and what I'm going to do is slice it into thin slices, and we'll take a close look at the texture. And it slices a lot like a roast. All right, can you get a close-up of the texture, Alexander? Quit zooming like some kind of mockumentary. Thank you. All right, did you get it? And it's got a good consistency, and what I'm going to do is put that into a little bit of homemade barbecue sauce, and essentially it's going to be like a vegetarian McRib sandwich.